Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Happy Monday, folks.
Happy Monday. It is a great weekend.
Yeah.
I cleaned the garage.
Oh my
I even
gosh,
hosed the garage out and mopped the floor.
She was wearing a big part of the garage by the time she was done.
I think I could have planted an entire planter box for the dirt that was all over me by the time I was done.
But it looks amazing. You did a great job.
It does. I was quite pleased with it.
And I was working on data for the upcoming event. Got some real progress.
Week.
Got some interesting stuff coming together already. So
there's there have been some emails that have gone out, and there's also we're going to be posting some things on buyer payer success, as well as the boardroom for people to take a survey and get a discounted ticket.
Yep.
So what else do we have before?
Of course, we still got
August
seats
1st,
for the September event. I
Yes.
learned this morning that one of the folks I was hoping would be there is not going to be there. So we still got that seat available. And so let's, folks who have an interest in, making a big pivot in their business or otherwise breaking out of a rut, maybe reach out if you want to talk about being at that 3-day retreat.
It's going to be a good one.
Yep.
It's really going to be a good one. Okay. And then hello to all of our friends and the folks out at TIADA today.
That's right. Texas is kicking off.
So Texas is kicking off. And that's a pretty big conference for Buy Here, Pay Here. And we got asked by a zillion people if we were going to be coming. And it's like, not this time. But it, we're here and we're there in spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's kind of like we're really trying to pioneer a way of being able to bring people together in a virtual world.
Yep.
And so that's kind of where our focus is.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's fun to be there at the conference, though, and all the great energy. Especially
really,
Texas has
really
got so many active dealers, and it's just a good group of
I
people.
remember last year we went to the awards banquet ceremony, and it was so fantastic.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, incredible.
So today, Monday, we have a special guest and a really great topic.
We enjoy bringing smart people to the broadcast, so we don't have to answer all the hard questions. So we got Jason Goodman standing by, joining us from. Are you back in Texas? Or you?
I am. Yep, I'm in Houston.
Texas,
Very nice.
Houston, very nice.
Welcome to the show. You've been a guest with us on a webinar before, and we're happy to have you here. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about around leads.
Yeah.
And Jason is a former dealer. Why don't you tell the story? In fact, Jason, as you kind of share your background, I would love it if you shared your background with the mattress company as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to Jim's point, when you get smart people, if you can't find one, find me. I'll always do the show. Happy to fill in.
Perfect.
So I grew up in the mattress and furniture industry. I spent my first 20 years of my career doing that. I spent a long time at Mattress Firm. When I was there, we had 250 stores when I started and almost 4,000 stores when I left. So I was able to do a variety of different things, got to see a bunch of different things. I started in sales at the very bottom level and ended as the vice president of business development, overseeing all of the non-traditional retail channels or any of the problematic things that would come up with the organization from a operational standpoint. So that ranges from, I ran our training department for a while, was in part of I ran the franchising group, launched e-commerce with Mattress Firm way back in 2012 or 2013. Right about that same time, we went public as a company, which was incredible. Part of e-commerce, though, and shopping for a mattress was we needed a call center. We needed it's more of a high touch product than just easy click and buy on Amazon, although a lot of people do that today. And so we built a call center along with the e-commerce. And then we did events and expositions. We did shows across the country, home shows, boat shows, rodeos, where they were consumer events that we would bring the Mattress Firm brand and products in front of those consumers. And so in doing that, being in charge of that business development, I got to learn a lot about, the way you fail and succeed in business and how to manage a P&L and how to grow a team of people from 0 or 1 when I started to hundreds of people over the next few years. So really, really great experience there. I did have a little bit more of an entrepreneurial drive than what I could do inside of Mattress Firm. So I left to run a event company. We did concerts, conventions, corporate meetings. Really got to be part of our culture of the clients that we had. We were really culture agents. We were trying to develop programs and processes for organizations to keep their culture or regain the culture that they had, or to set a culture that they didn't have but only wanted through events and through a number of other things. And then in my third career, I decided to get into the car business. So a friend of mine who had worked at Mattress Firm, we worked together. His father was in the car business for 3 decades, almost 4 at that point. And he said he had 70 years experience because he started sweeping the floors at 5 and he was 75 at the time. So 70 years experience. So I got to learn the business from him. And then y'all mentioned TIADA in the opening. Boy, I just jumped into all the meetings I could, whether it was the local chapter here in Houston, the Texas chapter, the national meetings. And I didn't know anything, right? I'm 30 years behind everyone else. And so I was able to gain the education specifically in the car business that I need, independent auto that I needed, through TIADA and other organizations like that. So like,
that's where we met.
Big shout outs there for me. So
yeah, that's where we met.
That's right. That is where we met. That's correct. Yes. And I watched y'all speak many times, frantically taking notes, hoping that I would remember all the good lessons that I was hearing. And to Jim's point, I was a car dealer. So we were a partnership, but I was the dealer principal, the one running the show every day. And we set up 3 locations throughout Houston. We had a mechanic shop, 30,000 square foot mechanic shop. We were selling between 100 and 150 cars a month, with plans to grow far beyond that. But obviously COVID happened and cars, the fluctuation of car pricing happened. We had an offer on our portfolio that was good. And so we sold the portfolio and shut the business down last summer, which was interesting to go through that process. Oh. But one of the things that's nice is like sitting in the dealer's seat, you kind of see what's important to the dealer. And it's not always the same thing that the employees are looking at as important that day. Sure. So, and then to kind of wrap it specifically what we're talking about today, one of the things that we got really good at because we didn't have any money was marketing and lead generation and getting customers into our stores. We couldn't afford to spend the kind of money that you need to advertising used cars in Houston digitally. And so we got really smart on how to do it and made more out of each lead as much as we could. Yeah. And so that's what I'm doing now. And we're focused on BDC and collections for businesses and any sort of business process that we can outsource for folks.
So your fourth or fifth career?
It depends on how you cut it, right? I had a few inside a Mattress Firm, really. And then, the concerts and the conventions were like 2 industries. And then
isn't it lovely how they all just kind of do this? And it's like you have a much more, it's a broader scope of everything in a whole than if you had just done like just events or just done,
Well, and I was thinking, I'm going to guess, and you were frantically taking notes about the car business, but I'm going to guess you ultimately learned that it's not so different than the mattress business, and that it's really about connecting with people and that whole sales process, right? I mean, you have the added part in buy here, pay here, specifically about the 3 and 4 year relationship with the customer to manage. But otherwise it's really similar. I mean, there's a lot of things. And I too, came up to the car business by way of, I actually worked in a franchise dealership for a time as a salesperson and later as a sales manager. And one of the things I witnessed, Jason, that was really interesting was you talked about that company going public. Ours didn't go public, but I was working for a very small dealership that was bought out, and it went from selling about 40 to 50 cars a month in a nice, franchise location to about 200 in like a week. I mean, just flipped the switch. And so being there to witness all that was really fascinating. Yeah. A lot of things I learned there that were, I find useful in my own management career. But I find that the car business, for us, the buy here, pay here side, your folks who are buying mattresses, this is just a bigger ticket transaction for folks in a car environment, buying a buy here, pay here car in a tough credit situation. So we should get to the conversation that folks are looking for to talking about leads.
Yeah.
So in particular, I wanted to ask you about, we kind of set up the topic as being bad leads. We work with a lot of clients and help them try to, dial in their processes, of course. And we hear a lot of people talk about either buying leads or their marketing is generating leads, but they sometimes describe them as bad leads.
I've heard that many times from dealers. Like, well, they're bad leads. They're getting 200 leads a month and only closing a fraction of those, and it's because they're bad leads.
So we want to hear from you. What is a bad lead?
Well, one of my favorite movies of all times is Glengarry Glen Ross. And it always reminds me of if you've never seen it, there's a scene where the salespeople are claiming the leads are weak. And the sales manager responds back, the leads aren't weak, you're weak. And so
that actually, it brought up George Spat. I don't know if you're familiar with George, out of Florida. He says it's an important point. The dealer's priorities are not always the employee's priorities. I'm always amazed when a dealer client doesn't take a recommendation because their employees don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's tough. Everyone lives in their own world, and that is definitely one thing I've seen across industry is people are people. And so there's this extreme view of the leads are weak or coffee is for closers, as George said. I love that. Great movie, but it's an extreme view. And there is some truth to that. But actually, I think the quality of salesperson in Buy Here, Pay Here is higher than any other area that I've ever experienced. I really think they're dedicated, they're deliberate, they're steady, they're focused, they're really good, they're technical, they work hard. And so I have nothing but respect for an auto salesperson or Buy Here, Pay Here salesperson. Yeah. The other side of the spectrum is the leads are actually weak sometimes, right? The leads are bad. And so it's hard to tell sometimes where the leads are bad because there's a number of different areas as you get closer from the ultimate marketing up here down here to the sale that happens. And so they can come from a number of different areas. The first thing that happens I see is people spend a lot of money on digital marketing, but they're using a firm that doesn't understand Buy Here, Pay Here. Our customer, although it's the same human being, they're shopping for different things. Like when I came into the business, I thought for sure we had started a car sales business. That's very easy. We did not. We created a finance company that sells cars to get loans, right? Yeah. And so the process for the customer is different. The fear and lack of trust is so high with this customer. They just don't buy it. And for good reason. They've been lied to and, they've done a little lying themselves maybe from time to time. And so the messaging that goes along with it and where you're marketing, you can generate 200 leads that are subprime auto and they go to your website and you're smack in the face, apply now, or cars that seem to be overpriced or get a bad rating on Kelley Blue Book for a bad deal, they quickly jump. And so you can generate the wrong lead. They're maybe unqualified or they don't want Buy Here, Pay Here. And then the filtering through that, boy, that really hurts. That's when you see dealers who say, I had 100 leads last month and I sold one or two maybe from that set of leads.
Yeah. I want to find out, on the back end of our conversation, we have time. I want to talk a little bit about how to improve the quality of those leads. I think for today, we just talk about the leads that we are getting, how can we better manage those? And so, obviously you can get a lead that comes in where the income. So I might think of it, maybe instead of a bad lead, maybe it's a mismatched lead. Like you're talking about leads that are coming in that don't exactly fit our Buy Here, Pay Here model. But then there's also a customer who comes in who just doesn't qualify. They don't meet the income requirements or they have no down payment or whatever the circumstances might be. But that I wouldn't call a bad lead. That's just a mistimed lead. That's a customer that we could potentially do business with later, right?
That's right. And, I think that's the thing about, Buy Here, Pay Here. When we look at it, there are things, if the customer's too far away, they're in Louisiana and I'm in Texas, I don't care how good of a customer it is or what their down payment is. I'm just probably not going to sell that car.
Right.
So there are qualifying things that help you narrow in your message. What do you say to a Buy Here, Pay Here customer? How do you say it? And then, kind of where is it going to be delivered to them? So, and then how do you filter that customer as well? I think there's probably 7 or 8, maybe 10 different ideas of where a lead goes bad. The biggest one that we can control is the lack of follow-up and the type of follow-up that goes into a lead. We can make a good lead go bad very easily.
Sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's maybe the title of it is when good leads go bad. Right.
That's actually a better title.
We'll have
Yes.
you back on Friday. Yeah.
That's I like that. So let's talk about that. How you said not getting back. I mean, how is it? What does it look like when a good lead comes in and then it goes bad? Just kind of paint a story for us.
Well, I think there's a difference, I think, in franchise dealerships today than there is in independent auto. I think the franchise dealership has really fine-tuned the BDC. They spent millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars developing these programs. They have really good technology that supports it, and they have fairly good response rates when it comes to when a lead comes in, how does that work? So we can learn a little bit from our cousins in the franchise dealership world. In the independent world, what I see oftentimes is that there's a website that is, crappy is the wrong word, right? But that's Jim, you agree with that word? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're a pretty informal setup here.
Yeah. So there's some crappy websites out there, and you know what? I hear dealers say, it was cheap. And that's true. I'm sure it was. And I'm not suggesting anyone needs to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a website, but the website has to be welcoming when you get there, because that's usually where you're driving your traffic is to a website or to a landing page. And so that's the first step. It's like you're playing a board game. The first stop is, what's the website look like? Ew, it's gross. I can't find my information. I'm out. And so you have to have a good looking website, and then there has to be a path to create a lead for that customer. You'll see this with many shopping sites online today. It pops up, what's your email address, 10% off for your cell phone number. Those things are so valuable to a retailer, a dealer. That's why everyone's asking for them. And we're getting way more comfortable with giving that information as well. But it's got to be easy and it's got to be quick. And so this is another part of a website where I see a lot of buy here, pay here dealers putting obstacles in the way of getting the information that you need. So what happens often is that you click on a button, get approved, and then there's a 27 question, including your social security number, before you can hit submit. I don't want their social right now. I mean, if they're willing to give it to me, that might not be a good sign anyhow. And so but I want to know who they are so that I can begin communicating with them.
Good.
So, that first level is that website and how they interact with the website. What does it look like? Does it have the right information? Is it easy to get information? Is it easy to provide information? Because that's all we're doing is kind of swapping info, right? We're going to try to build some trust through that and through the whole process. But at first, we just want to swap info. And the easier it is to do that, the more info we will get. So
I have a question for you, because you're saying that the website needs to be welcoming, so that you're suggesting that that any lead that comes in goes to the website.
A website or a landing page that was specifically built for the marketing that you're doing.
Excellent.
And landing pages are a little more advanced for some folks. But that when you have a digital marketing agency that you're working with, they can create those
pretty easily.
Yeah.
And,
it helps you with data. Jim talks about data. It'll help you with the data by using a landing page.
Yeah. And then you want to be able to create a path that is easy to follow for the customer. I just have one. I have lots of questions, but only one I'm going to ask right now. If they're landing on a landing page or landing on a website, how prominent should cars be on that website?
It's a great question. It can really depend, and I know that's a cop-out answer. But what I
buy here, pay here, it just depends.
Well, because here's the thing with buy here, pay here. If you get them too focused on the specific automobile, then you can really paint yourself into a corner, right?
I say it complicates the sales process sometimes.
Yes. So what you really want to convey is we're a place that you can trust. We have information. We would like some information. And then our cars, it's a vast selection. Right. We have plenty of vehicles. And one of the messages I think every dealer should put on their website, buy their inventory, is something to the effect of, we get in new cars every day. This is not an exhaustive list of the automobiles that we have, or something to that effect.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
And that's where I would like make the hero shot, is like a truck unloading cars, or an overview of your lot and all the different cars that they could see, or a picture of an auction. And you know, the scrolling helps too, because then you can start to look at the data, and when people hit this picture, they leave, or when they see this picture, they click on it. And so that's why I'm like, it depends, because some of the smaller town places I've seen, they really do sell a little differently than some of the big city. You know, being here in Houston might be a little different than being in Nacogdoches, Texas. So, but I do think it can be important. I think the most important thing, though, is putting people with those cars.
Yeah.
Pictures of your customers buying.
Can we pause for a second? I know that some of our folks will have to come and go. If you don't mind putting Jason's contact information, I can tell that what's going to happen is we're going to need to have Jason back, because as you talk, Jason, I'm thinking of more and more things. And if we try to just stay on the topic about lead conversion today, then we're going to need to have you back multiple times to talk about some of these things, because it's really rich, and it's really important stuff for dealers to hear and think about, because we certainly see it in our line of work. And Michelle and I both come from backgrounds where we have had involvement and had held management positions or ownership, and marketing was part of what we did, right? Marketing, branding, and lead generation. And so we have some experience there, and we're happy to share that. We can just tell you have more specific experience in certain disciplines.
And you've measured.
Elements. Yeah. And so, you know, as a manager, we've heard the thing about you can't manage what you can't measure. So that's why the data nerd in me says, you know, and working with our clients, we're trying to help them measure what's going on, so we can figure out what we're spending, you know, and what's effective, so we can direct our budget. But I think, you know, before we get to all that, we just can stay kind of on this idea of how do we, let's walk through the lead process. Like, I would love to go back even to how we even get people to our
Jim's
website.
like, Michelle, you're scrolling on websites.
It's all right.
Well, look, I think it's important, but I hear what you're saying, Jim. I can get there.
No, I think if we kind of stay through, because I would love to come back and talk more about how do we get people to our website to begin with. And then we want the website to be a good experience. Right. But if we think about that, and somebody let's just talk about all kinds of leads, whether they're in a Facebook Messenger thing or they're in on our website, then, you know, what would be the process that you would recommend that, you know, what's our first thing that we do? Like, what's a time frame for responding first?
Yeah. So I would say that the technology needs to be coupled with the humans. So what happens oftentimes is you can go put in go make a request at 15 different dealerships for a new car, for anything from a Land Rover to a buy here, pay here dealer. And you'll get responses back very quickly, oftentimes. So a quick response is important, but a non-human quick response is less valuable than a human response. So I fill out the information online, boom, I get an email back, or I get a text message back. That's great. But then I get a text message that says, hey, this is Michelle from, buy here, pay here dealership ABC. And I would like to talk to you if you have some time. What's a good time for you to talk today? Again, I was taught in the car business, never give information without following it with a question. So that's a very simple thing to look at. When you look at the programming in your CRM, does it end with a question? If you're just dropping information,
it's the end. Yeah.
Better than nothing.
Yeah.
But it's not helpful. So you're trying to lead this sale, just like we're taught in the car sale, right? So we're trying to lead the sale. So you give some information back quickly, and you ask a question. The question could be a number of different things, and it should be some human operating. What I see with dealerships oftentimes is the only human interaction they get is between 9 and 11 a.m. Because we come in, we get our cup of coffee, we go open up the CRM, and we tap, 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 and respond to the leads, which is good. But most of our customers aren't active at 9 to 11 a.m. They're either working or sleeping. And so the second step is quick response, human response if possible. Then the next thing is communicating with them at the right time. The unfortunate part is many of the CRMs in the auto space do not let you set up what time you're going to communicate to someone when you're building out sequencing. So if you're building out a sequence to say, I'm going to respond immediately, then day 1, day 5, day 7, day 17, if you respond to them at 8 a.m., that's annoying. If you respond to them at 12 p.m., at 11 p.m., that's annoying too. And so you got to find when is the right time. Usually it's somewhere in the late afternoon, early evening. That's your best time to communicate to a buy here, pay here customer. And so if you can schedule your CRM to set those up, if you can't, complain to your CRM provider or change CRM. It's that important.
So one of the things I enjoy about listening to you talk about is you seem to feel the same as I do about this idea of you want to use your own skills to be able to communicate with somebody, and ideally we would get them on the phone and move the thing along. So I'm curious to know, and I didn't prepare you for this question, but just a ballpark, like if I came to work for you and your BDC and I started taking in leads, approximately what percentage of folks would you expect that I would probably get on the phone?
That you'd get on the phone to talk with your voice?
Yeah.
Fairly low.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it can vary from dealer to dealer, but you should be able to get out of if there's 100 actual leads, like these are leads, how many of them did you talk to versus text versus Facebook message? Sure. Maybe a third. Again, depending on your marketing strategy. Okay. But people don't like to talk on the phone anymore. Right. Sure. So text messaging to me is just as good as verbal communication.
Okay. And that's good. I think with some, we can move it along. I like to talk on the phone if I can get them on the phone, but I know young people are much more, inclined to do text, and that's all good. I just think I'd like to give the customer the option, whatever method they would prefer, however they'd prefer to communicate. Let's get that done and let's get moving.
The phone is the best for sure. Like that's your ideal. That's like a A. Getting a text message is a B. Facebook message or email is probably a C or a D. But again, Facebook has some really cool auto bots that you can create that will chat bots that will automatically respond to that in some really kind of pseudo scary ways how good they get.
It's all that AI stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep.
Get pretty creative.
So I think that helps me to understand, like, we're going to communicate right away and we're going to try to communicate at a time. You're basically, what I'm hearing is, we need to be prepared to keep the dialogue going, because I always used to hear, and I don't know what the numbers are in buy here, pay here, used to be in the new car business when I was around there. They would say back then, this is late 90s when I was in the new car business, they would say, from the first time you make contact with a customer, they will have made a purchase within 72 hours. I don't know if we have any good data on that in buy here, pay here, but
I don't think that is true in buy here, pay here.
Okay.
I think so again, I know the stats from my dealership, and every month we would make between 8 and 12% of our sales with leads that were 6 months old or older.
Wow.
Which is so massive. What you just said is so massive. I have the opportunity with a lot of our clients to get into their CRM and see how they are ranking them and what their follow-up procedures are. And so many of them, it's like they're marked as lost, dead, whatever. And sometimes they may have some automation that will reach out to them after, but 6 months, there are very few dealers out there that have their systems set up so that there is a reach. Why is it that it's up to 6 months?
Because we don't actually, so there's two reasons. We don't know about it because we don't measure that data many times, right? And so I didn't know about it either, but we measured the data and we found out that it was true. And so we kept our leads open. The other part is CRMs oftentimes will close a lead automatically after 30 or 60 days, which is true in the new car side. In the mattress business, it's 72 hours and you're in and you're out. Yeah. People don't play around with that purchase. They need it, so they're focused on it.
Your back's hurting, so they need to solve that
correct.
Tomorrow, right?
But buy here, pay here, they might have a little extra cash in their pocket today, so they're thinking new car. That cash goes away, they're stopped thinking new car. They get some more cash, they're thinking new car, right? And so this is the world, right? You got to hit them at the right bump.
Yeah.
And so that's why you got to stay communicating for a long time.
Yeah, I love it.
Or the husband says, I'm going to shop for a new car. And then the wife comes in and says, we can't afford a new car. And then you never hear from him.
So, or, and this kind of goes back to, hopefully I'm not like derailing the conversation again. But about price is that we scare people off when they're first looking because there's this massive price and they go to Kelley Blue Book and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so big. We do understand in our industry that if someone is subprime, likely that's going to be their option. But when they're first stepping in, and we have a lot of people that are now getting categorized as subprime that were not subprime before. And so, and so it's going to be a little bit of a shock on some of that. So
which is why you have to have that better look, that better path of communication, the better sequencing, because if you want a better customer, they're not just going to drive into your lot. I think most dealers, if they're doing it right, and I shouldn't say most, if a dealer is doing their digital marketing and marketing correctly, following up, appointment setting, all those things, they should have between 60 to 80% of their sales that are generated non-walk-in, non-repeat referral. And so if you're getting 60 or 80% of your sales through walk-in, then you have a huge opportunity to sell more cars.
Yeah.
Amen. Yep.
Amen. Yeah.
Very good. And we see that obviously with some of our clients as well. But yeah, I think, again, I can just tell there's so much.
There really is. And we're going to have you back probably multiple times to talk about.
To wrap up just really quick, just so that like the key to me of what making sure that a lead stays good is the things we talked about. But then once you get to communicating, that's when you really have a lead. I don't believe in a lead unless you've communicated with them. Good. Facebook message or whatever. You have their information. You've communicated to them. You now have a deeper level of lead. So at that point, it's all about appointment setting and following up. And I don't think this is no big like, holy cow, I never thought of that. We know it, but we don't do it. And then when they don't show up to the appointment, the follow-up afterwards of why and what can I do, or if they do show up to the appointment, we also like to follow up with that customer to find out how their experience was. That helps the BDCs watch a sale go from a marketing lead to an actual new customer, and they get to feel it a little bit more. The customer gets to feel that connection as well.
Sure.
Well, and you mentioned when we first started that salespeople in car and in the auto space and buy here, pay here, you were like, hats off. When you look at, it's one thing when someone lands on the lot and a salesperson that can walk them through that. Are most, in your experience, are most salespeople good at lead nurturing?
No. I would say as much bad about them in that way as I do good in the sales ability and their efforts. And it's not, because look, I don't think salespeople, I can say it, I grew up as one. We're not always super detail oriented. We don't want to pick up the phone and make 30 calls every morning and 30 calls every afternoon and send the messages and follow. And then you have there's this antithetical purpose, right? Like, do I deal with the customer in front of me, or do I deal with the customer that's messaging or calling? And it's hard to balance those two. So it's not within my brain wiring. I'm good at sales. People who are wired that way are often not as good at sales. And so we're different people. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, so to speak, right? We're all different. And so it's a matter of having that process and procedure structured for them, and then, taking the time away from customers.
Yeah. I want to quickly, I don't know if you put this message up, but I want to also show the tile before we wrap up so we can show dealers. But this last comment from George about the because he said, and I'm absolutely right. So George says a phone call by definition is interruption, which is true. If I had a phone call, I would be texting somebody saying, are you available for a call? It would just be, I would be texting, and if they're okay, we'll jump on the phone and talk. Because I feel like my approach to sales is that as a salesperson, I'm a professional problem solver. And if you have a problem today, if we jump on the phone, I could solve it for you much more quickly. So it's out of the spirit of helping you solve your problem in the quickest way possible. Yeah. So that's the approach that I would bring. But if you want to show the data, I think it would be helpful, Jason, to be able to share with dealers a little bit about.
Do you want to do we add that?
Show it. Yeah, go ahead and show the things. Like we can talk through these numbers that you shared, because I think it's helpful for dealers to say, well, what kind of leads are bad? Like what percentage should I be closed? And you want to share with people what they're seeing on the screen.
Yeah, and I first want to share that these numbers are only for illustrating these are not any specific dealer's numbers. These are more through a conversation with other dealers, seeing what our clients do, what I did as a dealer, and more to illustrate the point. Okay, so like each column represents something different. Good performance. this is what I see. When a dealer's doing a really good job, they end up with, let's say out of 250 leads. Again, that marketing awareness up top, there's 10,000 people that these are eyes and ears. You'll hear marketing people talk about. They're aware of your brand, and there's 10,000 people. That number could be 20,000. It could be 5,000. It creates, let's say, 250 leads. So then that's when, like, I've actually talked to that customer. I have their information. They've responded to me. They're a lead. We move to that next level, which is an appointment set. Like, the customer agreed via text, email, phone call to an appointment. And so if you're doing a good job, you might get 45% of those leads to turn into a commitment for an appointment. Yeah. Whereas if you go to the next column over, you can see the difference if you're at, first of all, if you're at 150 leads versus 250 leads, and then you take that 45% versus 20%, and you can already see the attrition of your marketing dollars because you're spending the same amount to get that marketing awareness at 10,000, whatever made up number that is. So then the customers who will set an appointment, let's say 35% of them actually come in. So now I think that number might be wrong on my math there. My formula may not have carried over because I think 35% of 100 is 35. Even I can do that in my head. So it nets out to some sort of sales, 12, 15 sales, whatever. Okay. What is more common is the column in the second column over, which is you get 150 leads, you end up with 1 or 2 or 3 sales from that. Yeah. And you wonder, how can that happen? Well, because we're taking 150 leads and we didn't set very many appointments. And if we did set the appointments, we weren't following up. So very few of them actually came in the store. Yeah. Another level you can add in this that I had in my own personal marketing dashboard was application. Like, did they fill out the application? And that's what I put in kind of there's a best in class performance where you could take maybe 300 leads and turn them into 44 sales. Yeah. And let's say if that world works, that's great. The difference between the last 2 columns is what I like to refer to as a real approval. There are very few dealers who do this, but I think this is the holy grail of Buy Here, Pay Here BDC, which is getting the customer to commit to appointment and then fill out the credit app and then submit all the steps. And then all of that packet of information is handed to the underwriting department, the general manager, the owner, whoever makes the decisions. As Jim says, as close to the owner as possible, right? So then they get the decision before the customer comes in. And then you get to that bottom right-hand number that says 90% closing ratio. I think that most Buy Here, Pay Here salespeople, if the customer is able to buy and the customer wants to buy, that salesperson will sell them. There's so many times where salespeople spend an hour, hour and a half or more working with a customer only to get declined. In fact, real closing ratios are closer to 30 or 40% inside of Buy Here, Pay Here dealers from my experience. Right. Even though they could be much, much higher, especially if you bring that customer in with a real approval. And by the way, you'll also get more people that come in for the visits because they know they have a real approval and they know how much they need to put down. And this deal has already been structured and underwritten. So there's no question of approvals.
I know.
So, yeah.
We're going to have some dealers listening who are going to hear the same thing that I used to hear, which is, but if I approve them, then they'll know they qualify and they'll go shopping somewhere else.
Maybe. I mean, there's an excuse for every strategy for sure. Yeah, and so I don't think that's the case. I actually think that there's more data and experience to show that a customer who gets a real approval will come to see you. They didn't get to you because they haven't tried the Ford dealership already.
Well, yeah, I follow that. And I think it goes back to the connection. If we have some good connection with them, they like dealing with us, kind of what Michelle and I talk about all the time on the marketing side. If we've established some level of being known, liked, and trusted, then a real approval just means I can do business with the people I know, like, and trust, and I can get it all done quickly. And that's a beautiful scenario, right? So
that's right. And many CRMs are available to be able to do that today. Some are much better than others. You have premium ones like Neo, and then you have some of the lower end ones that aren't quite as capable. And so, but even if you don't have the CRM, it's easy to build a little website to be able to upload that stuff on a phone and get the information. Heck, have them text message it to you through your phone or email it. There's so many ways to get the steps and underwriting done before the customer comes into the store that saves everybody time. Your salespeople will appreciate it, your sales managers, the underwriting department, and most importantly, the customer.
Yeah. So we probably should wrap up. Let's figure out a time to have you back, because we didn't even get to some of our questions. There's so much automations and all kinds of stuff to talk about.
Monday?
We'll figure out a time.
We'll figure
out a time that works for you. In the meantime, I think folks can expect to tune in. And I'm going to embarrass Jason. I've been thinking, for those of you who are old enough to know who Depeche Mode is we have Jason on. I'm thinking he's going to become our own personal morning show Jesus. So he's kind of. So we're going to have him in. He's going to be our sales lead management guru. So,
I love it. So I hope that didn't embarrass you, Jim.
No. Blasphemy aside, it's not the first time I've heard that one.
Sure.
During COVID, having the mask to cover up our faces, it made me look so much better. So the beard kind of, just cover. The more I can cover up, the better. It's better for everyone.
Sure. You're a modest guy.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Thanks for playing along.
Hey, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will have you on soon. If you want to just hang tight backstage until after we're done, so we can chat with you after we've closed everything up, and then we'll figure out.
Yeah, thanks. That was really great information.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right. Let me pull the banner.
He's a good sport.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much for joining us today. I think this really some good, rich information about how can we, it's funny in when we talk to our different clients is that there are a plethora, and I did say plethora.
You did. Thank you, Michelle. That means a lot.
Okay.
It's an old joke.
It is an old
we
joke.
carry it with us everywhere.
It's an internal joke. But there are so many different ideas that we can use to help move that needle just a little bit. And, this is just one of them is being able to improve sales and, an extra 1, 2, 5, 10 sales a month make a difference.
Oh, sure.
And so, or contracts written. So,
so they're just, we barely scratched the surface today. There's so much to talk about on this subject. So I'm looking forward to having Jason back.
There's lots and lots and lots of meat on this bone.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah.
Don't forget to get signed up for that August 1st event. If you don't know how to, just email us. Jump on BHPHNationTV.com and get signed up for that August 1st event. Lots of rich numbers to talk about over there.
All right, guys. Have a fantastic week, and we will chat with you all on Wednesday. Thanks again for joining us.